Welcome in to Jacket Sports Weekly. This week, we're going to be breaking down the outdoor track and field invitational they went to, the Tim Weaver Invitational to be specific, what happened over there. And then in baseball and softball, they have two teams under their belt from the conference they have played against. We're going to be breaking that down there with our analysts, all that and more here on Jacket Sports Weekly.
Welcome to Jacket Sports Weekly, Waynesburg University's weekly sports show where we cover the best of the best in athletics. Our analysts discuss a multitude of highlight plays such as touchdown passes.
And Barber's going to throw again, one-on-one. Does he got it in him? That's a catch! Tyler Richmond with flags thrown everywhere makes the catch! Touchdown, Waynesburg!
And ones.
This was low, Waynesburg's going to get it! Suggs is going to pull away here, go for the layup, and it's going to fall in and one! P.J. Suggs!
And home runs.
Higgins drives one to left field. The left fielder running back, and that ball is out of here. Grace Higgins.
Join us every Wednesday to see what's new in Waynesburg University athletics.
Welcome into Jacket Sports Weekly. I'm Joe Chirillo, your host for today's episode. And right now we're going to be breaking down track and field. They just participated in the Tim Weaver Invitational. With me is analyst Mike McKenzie. Mike, break down the Tim Weaver Invitational, what was brought successfully and not so successfully for Waynesburg.
Well, I'll go over the notable finishes for the men and the women. Normally when we've been going over this in the indoor season in the past last year, the men's finishers, that was a little bit of a longer list than the women's. The women's finishers probably double the number of the men. They outperformed the men in this invitational, but both the men and the women did perform well at the Tim Weaver at West Liberty. Starting off with the notable men's finishers, Jacob Harker, we're on record watch with him. He's looking to break the program record in the shot put. He put up the fifth best throw in program history at 14.25 meters, sixth overall in the event in the shot put. Kyle Casella finished fifth in the 400-meter hurdles, was the top Division III finisher. Quentin Weaver was seventh in the 800 with a 1-minute 59.87 second time. He was also the top Division III finisher in that event. Noah Jones, a personal best in the 400 with a 53.53 second time, and in the long jump with a 6.05 meter jump, so a big day for Noah Jones. And then Ada McGee, a personal best in the 5K run at 17 minutes and 31 seconds. So some good performances, some personal bests, some top Division III finishers, I should say. And then we go over to the women. Ella Rochelle was the name to watch here. The program record in the 400, sixth overall in the event with a 1-minute 0.75 second time. She also finished seventh in the triple jump at 10.3 meters and ninth in the 200-meter run at 26.96 seconds. Natalie Double finished third in the event in the javelin throw at 34.95 meters with her throw. Meg Berry 10th in the javelin throw with a 25.64 meter throw. Grace Tanksley third in the 5K, 19-minute 59 second time for her. Erin DeLong, that's a name we haven't seen yet really in the indoor or over the first outdoor event a couple of weeks ago at the Marty Pushkin. She finished 8th in the 5K, a personal best time of 20 minutes and 48 seconds. Reagan Pettis 7th in the 3K steeplechase, 13-minute 14 second time. Riley Baker did the exact same thing she did last week. She bested her mark for the second best hammer throw in program history, 32.95 meters this week. Again, that beat her mark last week. She's honing in on that hammer throw record for the program. Second straight week, she's gotten the second best in program history. And then Maggie Clare, seventh in the shot put at 10.9 meters on her throw. Whew, long laundry list. It usually is, but this week, especially for the women, a longer list than we usually see. So a big performance from the women.
It's been very successful for a lot of these different players, and you mentioned a lot of them getting in the top 10s, maybe breaking some personal records, but then also a few like Ella Rochelle breaking program records. Do you see them using this to push them forward? And then also, do you think of anyone else or maybe any other records that could be in fear of being broken later in this season?
Any record that Quentin Weaver has is in jeopardy of being broken because he holds so many program records already, and he's still got the rest of the season to go. So any record of his, that's obviously on watch to get broken. We're on shot put record watch with Jacob Harker, with Riley Baker because of the hammer throw. 2 weeks in a row, she's gotten the second best mark in team history. And then obviously Ella Rochelle just broke the 400. So the remainder of the season, we're going to be on record watch there with the 400 because Rochelle, she can best her personal mark at any point, especially as we go throughout the season. But in a large event, a lot of Division II, Division III teams, not Division I teams like we saw at the Marty Pushkin a couple of weeks ago at West Virginia University, but especially early in the outdoor season, bigger meets, a lot more teams, a lot more competitors in these meets. You're looking for personal bests, you're looking for program records, and you're looking for how you finish among PAC teams and among Division III teams. A lot of top D3 finishers, a lot of top we saw one program record, a lot of personal bests, some top 3, top 5 finishes in program history with a couple of top 2s, and then the program record being broken by Ella Rochelle. That's what we're looking for here. You're not necessarily looking all at the 6th place in the shot put in the event by Harker, 5th by Casella, some 3rd places by a number of the women, including Natalie Double in the javelin throw. You're not looking at the overall as much as you're looking at the personal marks and the program marks and even a little bit of the Division III marks, but I'd say that's probably 3rd on the priority list. If you're just looking at the importance of finishes, you're looking personal bests and personal marks, number 1, and then number 2, you're looking how you compare against the program marks. That's what I'm thinking, at least 2 meets into the season. Now as you start to go on those overall finishes, once we get to Slippery Rock, which we'll get into, that's where the overall finishes are going to start to matter a little more. They'll increase gradually in importance as the season goes on.
Weather has been a constant problem for this track and field team, and it's not anything that they could control at all. But in this, frustration has come from Jacob Harker in trying to throw in the middle of rain, and has been complicating his throws. And then also you have the runners that have been affected by a lot of the rain. If you've looked on the Woo Jackets Instagram or anything like that, you could probably see a few photos of them running in the rain. How should they combat the weather that they're going into at some point?
I'm not sure you can physically do anything to combat the weather. I think at this point it's all a mental game, because we talked about it last week. The only difference, really, it's obviously the main difference, but I think the only difference going from indoor to outdoor is the weather factor, but that can play a huge role, as we've seen the first 2 invitationals meets, whatever adjective you want to use to describe that for Waynesburg. I think it's all a mental game. If you can get past that, then Ella Rochelle, obviously, she got it done in the 400 program record in this. I think it's a mentality. You cannot let it affect you mentally. There's obviously some things. The track is a little more slick. Maybe the ball's a little more slick, or just the surface more slick. The rain can kind of throw your coordination off a little bit. There are some things that physically you cannot combat. You're just going to have to deal with. I think it's all a mental thing. It's mentality. Can you work through it mentally? Sometimes you're in the rain, you're not going to be able to perform your best. It's, can you perform your best on this day? Circumstances change, situations are different. Some days you're not going to be able to perform your absolute best. And that's been the case the first 2 times for a majority of these Waynesburg athletes. We've seen personal bests and program records, but for some athletes, in their event, specifically a shot put like Harker, it's tough to perform your very best, especially for a guy who's looking to break a record in the program. We've been on watch for that since the indoor season, waiting for the outdoor season to see if he's going to break this record like he did indoor at the PAC Championships about a month ago now. It's all a mental thing. Can you work through it? Can you understand and come to gripes with, maybe in my event, I'm not going to be able to perform my very best today.
And in that, we're looking to Slippery Rock. And the Slippery Rock Invitational, they are going for the Dave Labor Invitational. In this aspect, the biggest thing is that they are no longer going to perform on Friday and Saturday. This one is just for Saturday. In this case, a lot of the throwers, at least, have had to participate Friday into Saturday as well. Do you think that is going to be a big change going in? This should be happening for at least the remainder of the season. It's just solely focusing on Saturday. In this case, is that going to help them a lot more in the long run?
I think it depends on how routine dependent these athletes are. If you're really dependent on that routine and you've already built it to the point where, Thursday you're ready to get yourself set, just to rest, recovery, stretch, whatever you need to do, just have a light day to go into Friday and really be able to perform your best. Now you have that extra day. How do you use that extra day? Are you able to work that into your routine seamlessly, or are you incredibly routine dependent and oriented, and now you have to figure out what to do on your extra day? I think it all depends on what these athletes' routines are. Can you slip that extra day in there specifically for the throwers and still be fine? Some of these throwers, maybe they needed the extra day. Maybe they've been waiting for the extra day to throw into their routine and now they get it. Maybe some of the throwers, they've worked with the the routine of going on Friday, and now it's, okay, how do I use that extra day? Let's figure that out now as we move throughout the season, because like you said, Joe, this is going to become a more common thing, everybody participating on Saturday, not throwers Friday, runners Saturday, like we've seen the first 2 meets of the season. So it's all dependent on these athletes, their routines. How do you use the extra day? Can you use it to your advantage? Are you able to slip it in there seamlessly now, or is it going to take a couple of weeks to get it in there?
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for sitting down with us to talk about outdoor track and field and the WU competitors that will be competing at the TAVE Labor Invitational at Slippery Rock University. But that is going to do it all for us for track and field. We're going to send it over to Dean Shazer breaking down some baseball. Welcome in to baseball. Joe Chirillo back with you. We brought on Dean Shazer, our analyst for baseball. We're going to be breaking down their first few conference plays that they have had, and then everything else that they are going to be looking at with some few non-conference matchups coming up. So, Dean, just break down for me what seems to be the biggest problem with this baseball team right now. Is it the pitching? Is it the hitting? Is it the defense? What is it?
It's everything combined. It boils down to fundamentals as a whole. When you have 4 errors against one of the top teams of the President's Athletic Conference, I'm speaking on game 1 against Washington and Jefferson, you're not going to win many games, especially against star-studded teams. Yeah, you'll win the games in the middle of the pack, below the pack, especially if you get the pitching that you got in games 1 and 2, specifically first half of game 1 and game 2. Pitching all around in game 1 was well, and I know I'm kind of answering both questions. Earhart pitched well, one of his better outings of the year. He struck out 6, gave up 8 hits, allowed 4 runs, but 2 runs before a 2-run shot in the 5th, I believe. You'll take that from your starter every day, especially in the pack. But it boils down to fundamentals. It's base running errors. It's not being able to get any bunts down, fielding, taking your first steps correctly, going back on a ball first instead of running up on a ball first when judging line drives and fly balls. So fundamentals, it's the whole thing. And it's bases, it's at the plate, and it's in the field.
It's everything combined. You mentioned the bunting has been a problem, which that was one thing that we saw very early on in that first game. There was that pinch that they had in where it didn't look like they practiced it a whole lot.
Yeah, that's something that I actually wanted to key on specifically.
Please.
One of the worst decisions I've ever seen, ever. Second and
bad.
third, you obviously have something going on the offensive side. One of your better hitters in Trent Jarafa comes up to that point, he's batting .355.
Has one of the best averages over the entire team.
Yeah, and he's probably top 20 in the PAC. It only shows top 5, but he's probably top 20. And Trent Jarafa batting .355. Runner on second and third. Mind you, the runner on third is Ada Williams. He's a catcher, so obviously not the speediest guy. And you squeeze him. It's an away breaking ball that Jarafa has no chance to get the squeeze down. Mind you, Williams already broke for the plate, so he had no chance of getting that.
Bad circumstances, bad call all around.
Exactly.
I think it was just poor kind of circumstances that they were in. But again, it was one thing that they can work on and they should be working on, hopefully going into that. But with these 2 recent losses to Washington and Jefferson, should that cause more panic or no? Because Washington and Jefferson has won the past 5 conference championships over the entire season.
Yeah, exactly. 19, 21, 22, 23, 24.
Yeah.
There was a skip in COVID, I think. I don't really know. But yeah, like you said, past 5 in a row, Washington and Jefferson, especially with their starting rotation. DiMatteo, Strusnik coming in for relief, one of the better pitchers in the pack. He has an under 1 ERA, and obviously the starter of game 1. So Washington and Jefferson, there's no panic. No panic right there. 6-2 game, you battled them hard in game 1, and I know we're going to talk about Allegheny, this being like two of their first matchups in the President's Athletic Conference. They're 2 of the best teams in the PAC, both undefeated right now. There shouldn't be any panic. You just trust yourselves at the plate. I know I sound like a broken record, say it every episode, but the hits were going early in both games, nothing after. They kind of stalled through the middle of the game. And Marzalik was the first pitcher of the game one, just came to my mind. Ethan Marzalik. So all those guys have under 2.5 ERAs, and you face two of them in both games that you play them, and you don't score well in the second game. Game one, you only put up 2 runs, but it's Washington and Jefferson. They do this. They're one of the best coached teams in the pack and all across D3, and you expect to lose at least one of those games, if not 2, like they did.
And you said about Allegheny and Washington and Jefferson, they are 2 of the toughest teams to face within the conference, and they had them in the beginning of the season with their conference play. They had Allegheny, then they had Franciscan at an away trip, then La Roche, which was rescheduled from their season opener, or their home opener, that was supposed to be, but since rescheduled to La Roche, they played just one game with pretty much some players, pitchers that aren't going to be seeing a whole lot of time. Do you see this as a positive or a negative that they have lost both games to Allegheny and Washington and Jefferson this early in the season?
Well, it's obvious. Well, it's neither a positive or negative. We'll go negative, saying they lost all 4 games, but there are positives that you could take away from it. You don't have to face these teams much more down the stretch, only once more, because you play each pack team twice, and you're glad to get this one out of the way. These are the 2 teams, when they come up in your schedule, you're like, you have to be on everything.
Right, they're gone.
There can't be any fundamental errors like they had. If you have those games and they're, let's say, against Bethany and Teal of the conference, teams who aren't that great strength-wise, from top to bottom in the lineup, such as Washington and Jefferson, Allegheny, they're so deep in every aspect of the game, especially considering the President's Athletic Conference, you're glad you got them out of the way. So now you get the rust off, you go into this next series, and you have not easier opponents, but opponents that you match up with better on paper because they're not so, let's say, overpowered or stacked, to use lack of a better term. And you're glad. You move forward. All right, we got that out of the way. Let's put our heads down. We win 2 games. We sweep one of these series. Now we have something going. Now we can trust ourselves. And maybe you win 5 of the next 6, 7 of the next 8, 8 of the next 10. And once you get that, you put yourself into a position to compete. And with only a 1-5 record in the President's Athletic Conference, it's very early. It is very early. There's not time to panic, but if they keep losing multiple series in a row, then guys start to not trust themselves. And when you don't trust yourself or your teammates, you don't go far. So it comes down to the trust of your teammates, the strength of the team. Fundamental errors can't happen on any sides of the ball, and you're glad you got them out of the way.
And like you said, you got to trust yourself and you got to trust the rest of your coaching staff that you do have. But in this case, there was a coaching change that happened. Coach Perry Cunningham, had left the team, and then the new hire of Michael Impellitteri. Do you think that could potentially lead to the main struggle that this team has had? Is it the coaching, or is it just trying to find their footing as a team that hasn't been working out quite well for them?
Well, in the early series against Pitt Bradford, and then they went to Florida, and they had that big stretch of tough Florida games where everything just imploded, it seemed, after that Florida series. So I don't know if you could directly point it on the coach, because there were positives right before that series, and I remember asking some of the guys, Jordan Mosley specifically, he liked what he was doing after the Pitt Bradford game. I asked him how he managed the game. He said he thought he managed it situationally well. They didn't know how it was going to be just because their bodies were so beat from practice. They were every day, double practice, lifting in the morning, hitting later, and if it wasn't, it was like a 2.5-hour practice at 5:30 in the morning. So in Impellitteri, got their bodies right, but it might have worn them out a little bit. But that wasn't the case immediately. It didn't happen immediately. Everything was good immediately when the games first started being played. So they said, yeah, it might be tearing our bodies apart, but if we can win games and we have the right mindset, and then something just seemed to switch. You start losing games and you just start pointing fingers, and when you point fingers, they're going to point fingers back. So it's not so much the head coach change. I think it's just more of the losing morale is getting to these guys mental and is making them think that they can't trust anyone, even though they can.
Well, thank you very much, Dean, for joining us here to break down some baseball after they've started their conference play. Their next game is not going to be conference. On Thursday, they will join Penn State Barron in Barron up in the Erie, Pennsylvania area. They'll be playing them for their last non-conference game of the season. But that is going to do it all for baseball. Next, we're going to have Seth Adams join us up here on the desk for some softball.
Unable to watch the live stream? Follow our account on X for live updates on the game. Check us out on Instagram as well for game day posts with all the information you need to know, as well as behind the scenes of each production. Our social media team works the hardest to give the best content to all of our audience. We're even on TikTok. You can stay up to date with WCTV on our Instagram account with clips from each of our shows. And last but not least, subscribe to our WCTV YouTube channel to watch those shows in full length. Check us out from Lewiston, WCTV, and the entire Department of Comm.
Welcome in. We are back with some softball here at the desk. Joe Chirillo, as previously mentioned in the past two segments, we are joined here by Seth Adams to break us down, as always, for some softball. My first question to you is just, the team has had 3 wins, 3 losses since we last saw you here on the desk. Can you talk about what we've seen in those games?
Yeah, so first game, or the first doubleheader we're going to talk about is Allegheny. Talk about a series. This was probably the most fun series that I've got to watch. And first game, 4-3 win in extra innings. It was 3-0. Waynesburg was down to the 7th. Then Camden Kowalczyk had a base-clearing double to tie it up in the bottom of the 7th. They would go to the 8th. Rhianna Rice would then hit the game-winning single. So great game there. Then the next game, Mesa Heitman had an inside-the-park home run and a solo shot over the fence, too. So pretty dominant performance from her. They win that game 5-0. Cindy Wilson was on the mound for that one. LaRoche, I'll go over for a little bit. 4-3, they lost the first one. Waynesburg had 4 errors in the first game, which was a big contributor to that. They're actually leading. They had a 3-1 lead going into the 5th, but then LaRoche had a 3-run bottom of the 5th. This was Madison Baker's first loss. Then they would go on to beat them 13-0. So kind of just shows the difference there. But this one is the one I want to talk about. Grove City. First game, 4-2 loss. They played them earlier when they went down to Myrtle, and they beat them 3-2. So you're playing this opponent for the second time now. They lose the first one 4-2. Stemple started in this one. They were up 2-0 off of Alyssa Rager home run, but then a 3-run bottom of the 5th. Grove City had a home run in that one a couple hits later, and then they were down 3-2. And then they had 1 run in the 6th for insurance. So kind of got a little bit of cushion there. Then Waynesburg only posted 4 hits in that game, something that we don't really see from them too often. We take a look at the next one, a 6-2 loss. So they got swept by Grove City when it mattered most. Sydney Wilson started. She only went 3 games, had a little bit of an injury. We're not too sure on that, so just kind of take that with a grain of salt there. But Wilson would go 3 innings, allowing 4 runs, but only 1 earned run, a couple of errors, and a couple throwing errors, if that would cause them to get in a kind of a bind. They had Grove City had a 3-run 4th inning. Waynesburg couldn't catch up. Waynesburg only posted 4 hits in this one as well, with 2 hits coming in the first inning.
And like you said, Grove City. I mean, Grove City is top of the conference right now. They're 6-0. They have not lost a conference game yet. 15-4 overall in their season. But with this, do you think that with Grove City seeing them at Myrtle Beach this early on, and especially seeing Stemple, who was on the mound for that one, do you think that it benefited Grove City to see them this early on, to then be able to use that in their conference matchup where they got swept?
I felt like it was a mutual agreement for both of them, or mutually beneficial for both of them, because you get to look at a PAC opponent way into the future, and like we see in these games, 4-2 loss, 6-2 loss, they won in Myrtle Beach, was a 3-2 win. These two battle it out. They have some of the best pitching in the PAC. They have some of the best hitters in the PAC. It's really a slugfest, and the conference is pretty stacked altogether. We look at it right now, a lot of the teams are 3-3. Grove City is undefeated. They're 6-0. Bethany's up there at 4-0. Waynesburg is 8th right now, but they're still 2-4. Playing Grove City, which is a really tough team, and beating Allegheny, who is also 3-3. So I feel everything is kind of open right now. You can't really tell who's what until we get later into the season. Right now, I still feel we're in that beginning. Some teams are still working things out. I feel once a couple of weeks go by, we're going to see who the team's true colors are.
And we're going to be seeing those true colors with Geneva and Franciscan coming up. That Geneva game is going to be the suicide awareness game that is being held this Wednesday. What should Waynesburg do to attack the Golden Tornadoes?
This is going to be another great matchup for Waynesburg. Both of these teams are solid. Geneva 14-4. They're 3-3 in the conference. They're coming off a split with Teal. They won the first game 4-0. Then they lost the next one 8-2. But then I did some more digging and found that a lot of the runs from Teal came in the first inning, I believe, and it was from errors. Just errors. And it was with 2 outs, too. And I think they got 4 or so runs in that first inning from just one mistake, and then it kind of snowballed into that. But they have 2 pretty solid pitchers in McKenzie Rapp and Sophie Travak, who have just been pretty outstanding. Rapp has a 1.66 ERA, 22 runs, only 9 earned runs. And then they look at the other one. She has a 2.29 ERA, 16 earned runs, and 49 innings pitched. So this is going to be what team can hit better. Yep. They both have solid pitching. Who is going to be the ones who can go out there and put bat on ball and put it in play? Geneva has a 317 average, and Waynesburg's up there too. And it's going to be a battle of who can put the bat on the ball. It's not really about the pitching. The pitching has both been solid from both sides. Waynesburg's been struggling in that, only having a couple hits in the last couple games. They got to figure it out, especially against this Geneva team.
They need to just be consistent. That's the biggest thing, is consistency with these teams. Who is going to be the most consistent with their hitting? And in this case, for Waynesburg, it is still early in the season, but this has been a lot less of a constant that we've seen with the hitting for this team so far. But moving over to the pitching side, Presley Meadows and Madison Baker have only been starting non-conference matchups. They have not started a conference matchup yet. That has been handled by Autumn Stemple and Sydney Wilson. You mentioned earlier that Wilson may or may not have an ankle injury. We still don't know anything around it. So again, grain of salt, as we said before. But do you think that this should mean that Meadows and Baker might be looking to start any of these PAC games, especially because Wilson is a senior? Yeah. We're going to be seeing her on the way out at some point. So do you want to start developing these pitchers, or do you just want to wait and use Wilson while you have her?
I say use these pitchers in the games where you're kind of more confident. Like I said, we're still kind of early. We don't know what teams are the best in the PAC right now. But these two, they have so much potential, and I'm excited to see what they bring, especially since you said Sydney Wilson, she's going to be a senior. She's going to be gone next year. One of your 2 top pitchers are going to be gone, so someone's got to replace her in that area. And Meadows or Baker, they've both been doing a great job, so props to them. I mean, they come in at any time, every time that either Stemple or Sydney Wilson gets pulled, it's one of those 2. And they have just been pretty lights out for the most part. I mean, one of them had a loss, I believe. Hold on, give me a second. Find it on my 15 papers. Someone had a loss. I can't remember which one. Had a loss earlier in the game against LaRoche. But, I mean, like, that's experience, and she's gaining it, and that was a close game, too. They probably won against their ace in that one. So I think it's going to be all right. If you have these 2 pitchers who are both pretty young, they're going to develop, and they're going to be even better in the next couple of years.
And like I mentioned in the baseball segment, there was changes in the pitching. Do you think that changes in the coaching? Do you think that this has also had an effect on their season so far?
Baker had the loss. Sorry. The coaching, I feel that it's kind of been a standard of looking at last year. They've kind of had this same situation where they're not completely dominant at the beginning. They're a little shaky at first, and then they pick things up right when it mattered, and they went all the way to the chip. But for this year, I feel that Coach Brunson has done a good job of just kind of maintaining what this team has, trusting the seniors and letting them do what they need to do. Grace Higgins, she's still one of the top in the PAC in batting average. And Sydney Wilson obviously is still one of the best pitchers in the PAC. So I think that Coach Brunson just has to keep doing what he's doing and let the players let the leaders help him out and let them kind of take it from there.
Well, thank you very much, Seth, for sitting down with us for softball. Softball will be playing Geneva for their suicide awareness, the Angels, in the outfield game this Wednesday. Make sure to tune in on the Waynesburg University Sports Network for an amazing production that we will be putting on for you there. But thank you to everyone who has been on the desk and behind the scenes, and thank you very much for watching Jacket Sports Weekly here on WCTV.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.